Section 60 stops are what's known as suspicion-less or authorised stops. Suspicion-less because unlike kind of regular stop and search, which is regulated by the Police and Criminal Evidence Act, Section 60 stops don't require the officer to apply a reasonable suspicion test when they're deciding on who to stop. They're put in place, Section 60 stops are put in place when a senior officer, actually not that senior, rank of inspector or above, nominates a particular area, serves an order, and in that area for a limited period of time, 15, 24, sometimes 48 hours, an authorization is put in place, and officers within that area can choose to exert this power to conduct suspicionless stop and search. All stop and search is a point of concern when it comes to police-community relations. That's probably particularly the case for Section 60. And one of the points of concern is there's no real evidence that it has a preventative effect and stopping this violence occurring or stopping violence reoccurring if it's in the aftermath of a crime. Most Section 60 stops, the person stopped is found to have done nothing wrong. Only in around 1% of stops is a weapon actually found. So only 1 out of 100 of these stops would generate the thing that they're meant to be generating, which is finding a weapon to prevent violence from happening. And like all stop and search, it causes community tensions, it's particularly targeted particular groups, most obviously the Black community in London and elsewhere, damages police community relations. So I mean, it's a bit like all the concerns we have in general about stop and search are multiplied when it comes to Section 60. So not only is it the case that very few of the searches actually generate weapons and even anything else, I mean 95% of the people have stopped have found to have done nothing wrong. There's no evidence that applying this power or really applying any stop and search power exerts any deterrent effect on people's behaviour. So we know in cases where there's been sudden uplifts in use of these kinds of powers, they haven't resulted in a decline in crime subsequently. The link between stop and search and lower trust and lower police legitimacy is incredibly well established. It's one of the most kind of consistent findings in criminology, that the people who have been stopped and searched by the police have lower trust and grant the police less legitimacy. And that's because, you know, being accused of something that almost invariably in the case of Section 60 you haven't done, challenges, you know, challenges the relationship you might have with the police, or if it's a first encounter with the police, it undermines any kind of trust you have in them because you're literally being accused of something that you haven't done. From a policing perspective, one of the things that might be more effective than Section 60 is just police presence. So instead of going to an area and conducting stop and search, police could go to an area and be there and perhaps talk to people and find out what's going on. So it's not, we can decouple stop and search from other kinds of things that police might do in an area in the aftermath of violence or when they think violence might break out. So that's one thing. And of course, beyond that, you'd want to be looking at longer term preventative measures, education, healthcare, all these kind of things that will feed into levels of violence in particular communities, which haven't got anything to do with the police. So which are things that other actors can and should be doing in those communities to help reduce violence. You have to ask the question of why do you keep proceeding with the use of these powers in the ways that you are? Doesn't reduce crime, or at least not by very much. I mean, it really undermines trust and legitimacy among those people particularly exposed to it. What's the point of proceeding as you were? Why can't you change something?